What's up, movie fans? I'm the Master of Movies Clay from the Hills Maniacs, and today I'm going to be talking about inconsistencies I found in Captain America, the First Avenger. So, I wanted to do this video because, the Eternals just released in theaters, and I'm kind of in that Marvel mood right now, and I noticed also that I haven't really done any inconsistencies for movies other than horror related movies, and so I figured it was time to kind of step aside from the horror inconsistencies and do one for a series such as the MCU. And so I'm going to start and go in chronological order with these, and you'll see a series of these as I try to hit all 20 however many movies there are in the MCU. And I'll probably include Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision, the Disney Plus series from the MCU. I'll probably include those if I get around to them. So anyways, let's get into this then. So basically, if you're new to these inconsistencies videos, how it works is I rewatch a movie that I've seen before, and I kind of take notes and write down things that either don't make sense or kind of like plot holes, things that are never really filled in that might be important or might not be important, just kind of things that were never really answered or filled in, certain things, or even I find little like details in the movie where something changes, where you can tell that it was kind of like a cut edit, or something that doesn't really fit in a certain spot, or something in the background, or something like that. So basically, just any kind of minor or major inconsistency, depending on the part of the movie that it's from, or the movie itself, depending on how many I find. So the first thing I want to talk about is when Dr. Erskine is talking to Captain America, or Steve Rogers at this point, before the procedure to turn him into the super soldier. He gives him a drink, and he's pouring the alcohol of whatever kind into two glasses, and you can see when he's holding it, he's grabbing the bottle by the neck, and he's tipping the bottle, to pour it, and then in the next couple of seconds, when he's pouring the bottle into the other glass, he's with the same hand holding it, but he's now down on the actual bottle itself. And I guess you could say that he just kind of slid his hand down. Again, see, that's one of those things that's not really a major detail, but it's something that I noticed, and I never really noticed it before because I never was really paying attention. But as I do these inconsistencies, I have to pay closer attention to the things that are actually happening in the movie, like the background details and stuff like this. So not really that major of a detail, but still something I noticed where you could kind of tell that they probably stopped filming and then refilmed, and he was holding the bottle different. The next thing I want to talk about is immediately after Steve Rogers comes out of getting the super soldier serum, and he comes out of that kind of giant machine contraption shell thing that he was in. The one Hydra soldier ends up killing Dr. Erskine, and Steve chases him down. And my question is, because it seems that Steve knows that, like, oh, I can do this or I can do that. He knows that he seems to know that he can run fast and chase this guy down when he's in a car and Steve is on foot. Or he seems to know that, like, he has super strength and can jump over cars and stuff like this. But at the same time, he also doesn't know how to walk, apparently, because he's running and he ends up sliding through a window because he apparently doesn't know how to use his own 2 feet. So that's kind of a contradictory thing there, that like he has these superpowers but can't walk yet. But at the same time, it's also like, how does Steve know what abilities he has? How does he know that he can run faster? How does he know that he's stronger and can jump over these cars and jump really far and make it? Because he just came out of the machine. We don't really know that he should have these abilities yet, and yet Steve seems to know that he has these. And so that was kind of something that I get why they were doing it, because it was for the plot, but at the same time, it's like you could have at least had a scene where Dr. Erskine was telling them, he'll have these abilities. The next thing I want to talk about is when Steve goes on a rescue mission to rescue Bucky from the Hydra base that he's being held at. Steve jumps in the back of one of the trucks driven by the Hydra soldiers, and he kind of beats up the two, and you can see the truck shaking back and forth as he's beating up the two guys in the back. Now my question is, if it was really moving that much, and they were making all kinds of noise, because you could hear them like, when they were getting beat up, how did the driver of this truck not feel the truck moving when we could clearly see the truck move? And they could have just added that in for dramatic effect, like, oh, look how strong he is, he's moving the whole truck. But at the same time, if it was actually happening, and the truck was actually moving like that, which I'm pretty sure it would if he's beating these people up, how did the driver not know that? And then, in that same kind of scene, the trucks go into the Hydra base, and Steve, one guy goes to check the back of the truck, and Steve hits him with the shield back into the base, and there's a bunch of other people standing right there in that area, and not one of them notices this dude just randomly fly backwards. Not one of them notices Steve get out of the truck and run into the base when there's clearly a bunch of people standing there. Nobody sees this out of the corner of their eye, even if they're not looking directly at it. You don't see this dude just fly off into the background, out of the corner of your eye. And even later on, when Steve's running through the lab trying to attack people, he comes out in the middle of this thing, and there's people walking this way and walking this way and walking that way, and nobody sees him. And again, I get it's for the movie, but still, he's not invisible. Like, you could at least have more people, like, say something about, hey, this guy shouldn't be here. The next thing I want to bring up is closer to the, not really end, but basically the main climax of the movie, where Captain America basically faces Red Skull for the first time. There's a scene where Red Skull and Dr. Arnim Zola are going up the elevator to the roof, and Red Skull gets in the giant airplane helicopter thing that's there to escape the base that's exploding, and Dr. Zola has to go back down to the garage on the ground floor to get in the car. And my question is, how fast is this elevator, and how many floors are there in this thing? Because he probably would not have actually made it there from the roof to the car without the building exploding around him. And how did the elevator not explode? Like, all this stuff's exploding. Nothing exploded close to the elevator that would have shut it down. Probably not the best idea to take an elevator during an explosion. But anyways, so, like, how did he get from there to that? That's a pretty fast elevator, if you ask me. Unless there's only 3 floors, like the basement, the level they were on with Captain America, and then but it's a Hydra base. I would assume there's multiple levels, and so I just don't know how he got there without being part of the explosion. So later on, Captain America is going back to wipe out these Hydra bases all over the world, and he basically goes to Howard Stark, who is the father of Tony Stark, and asks, well, he doesn't ask him, but Howard Stark offers to make him like a new outfit and a new shield and stuff, and Cap finds a prototype, and he says, what's this one? I'll take this. And he said, oh, it's a prototype, it's made of vibranium, it's the strongest metal in the world, and what you're holding is all we have of the vibranium because of how rare it is. Now, at this time, I would assume Wakanda was still a place, and I don't know if it would have been T'Chaka in charge of Wakanda, or which was, Black Panther's father, or somebody before him, but Wakanda was obviously still isolated from the world. So if it was isolated and nobody knew about Wakanda and its advanced technology and vibranium, where did Howard Stark get this little bit of vibranium to make this shield? He would have had to have either gone to Wakanda or bought it, probably illegally, or stole it from somebody who has vibranium from Wakanda, you know, like kind of like what Claw does in Black Panther and Age of Ultron. Um, and so, where did Howard Stark get the vibranium from? Because he shouldn't have had it, even if it is a rare substance. Somebody had to get it from Wakanda if that's the only place on Earth that vibranium comes from. So they could have, I mean, even like later on in the franchise at least, explored that a little bit, like where did Howard get the vibranium from in the first place. But they never really mention it again. And then another thing, and I've always wondered this, you know, because you look at Captain America's shield, and yes, I get it's made of vibranium, which is the strongest metal, so it probably can bounce off or ricochet off of things and come back if he throws it at the right angle. But also, there's been times where he's thrown it like up into a tree and knocked a guy out of the tree. So you're telling me that it can bounce off of a human being with the perfect force to come back to Captain America? I know later on he ends up having a thing like on his wrist where he can just pull it back to him, and it'll like attach to him. Because Tony gives him that. But even in this one, like even with the advanced technology Howard Stark had for that time, it didn't seem like Cap had anything on his wrist that brought it back because he still strapped the shield on to his arm. So how does he get it to come back even back then? Wish they would have explored that and kind of explained, like maybe the shape of it gave it its ability to come back, or if you throw it at the right angle, it comes back, or something, you know, something. But I know I've thrown a lot of round objects and none of them have come back. So I don't know how it works. And later on, they're chasing. So Colonel Phillips, Agent Carter, and Captain America are chasing after Red Skull, who's in the Valkyrie, which is his ship, and they're driving a car with Steve about to jump off and land in the ship so he can attack Red Skull. And Steve jumps off right as the plane basically lifts off the ground, and then the car is driving, and Colonel Phillips has to step on the brake and keep the car from going off the cliff. And it stops, and the two back wheels end up off the back of the cliff. And both Agent Carter and Colonel Phillips turn around to look at Captain America and the ship. My question is, A, how did they get out of the car without it falling? And B, did the car ever fall? They never, not like it matters at all anyways. And if not, how did they get it back up? Because the two back wheels are off the thing. I mean, I don't know much about cars. I don't know if the two front wheels could pull the thing forward or not. But it's just, how did the car not tilt backwards when Agent Carter stood up to turn around and look back at Captain America on the airplane? And then the last thing I want to talk about, and this is one thing that another thing that like I've always been really confused about, and I don't know if it's, I know a lot of people have said it's probably because it was just used. The final battle between Red Skull and Steve, we had Johann Schmidt, or Red Skull, ends up grabbing the Tesseract with his bare hand and gets transported to somewhere, which we later learn is Vormir, to protect the Soul Stone. But as of this movie, we don't know where he goes. And when he disappears, the Tesseract falls and kind of melts through the floor and out of the Valkyrie and into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. And again, you see in this whole movie, you know, Red Skull pulls the Tesseract at the beginning out of a wall, and it's just kind of in a box, and it doesn't melt through the box. And then later on, Red Skull has it in kind of a container, and it doesn't melt through the container. So why was it able to then melt through the floor of the Valkyrie? And I know a lot of people have said, well, it's probably because, you know, it was kind of like heated up when Red Skull got transported there, so it was like hot, so it just kind of melted through the thing. I don't know how the Tesseract works, but even later on, in the MCU, we see a lot of people using different kinds of containers to hold the Tesseract. I mean, they have it in a briefcase at one point, and nothing happens. You know, so I don't know if it's just certain cases, and it ends up going through the floor, because I don't really think we see it happen ever again. And even Goose in Captain Marvel, the Flerken, ends up swallowing the Tesseract at one point. So if it was meant to go through things, it should have just melted right through Goose, but apparently not. And I don't know if that was just a plot hole or if it was just because of the fact that it had just transported Red Skull to the middle of nowhere. Not this nowhere. Actual, like, I mean, technically the middle of Vormir. But still. So I don't know how that works or why it just did it there and we haven't seen it do that again after that. But again, I wish another thing that they would have explored even later on, or had it do it again after somebody uses the Tesseract, you know. Or, and even again, because we know the Tesseract has the Space Stone, did the stone cause it to melt through the thing? And if that's the case, then shouldn't it have melted through the Infinity Gauntlet? And all kinds of other questions pop up from this because of it going through the floor like that. So, anyways, guys, there you go. That's it for the inconsistencies I found in Captain America: The First Avenger. Stay tuned for my next inconsistencies video when I review Captain Marvel's inconsistencies. So basically the whole movie of Captain Marvel. And I'll try to keep going. If this is something you guys want to see, I'll keep going with the MCU, and we'll include, you know, the newer films that come out as they fit in chronological order. So, for example, the new Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and all of those. Stay tuned for what else we got going. Remember, leave the scumbaggery at home, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Subscribe.